Welcome back to the workshop, everybody. So glad you could be with me here today. Walter here at the workbench. So last time when we were together, we were talking about these little sandwich boards. I've got 4 of them as a set, and I finished planing the edges, squaring up the ends on the shooting board. And just to recap, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, what I do for a simple shooting board is I use my bench hook that is squared up, and I put down a piece of newsprint. You could use some other slick surface, and I put a little bit of oil on the cheek that lays down, and this becomes quite slick, and I don't scratch up, mar up, or ruin my workbench. So that's my simple shooting board. And then when you're, just before you go to shoot the end, you take a little chamfer off the corner. Okay, so that when you do start shooting the end grain, you don't get a blowout here, or a tear out, or a chip out, whatever you want to call it. So, I prepared a scrap piece because now we need to talk about edge treatment. So, we can put this away. Simply put, edge treatment means we're doing something to these very, very sharp corners. Let's see if I can get in close here. We want to do something to these sharp corners to take the iris off. That's a fancy word for sharp corner. You see how we're taking this little fine shaving off? And that should be done almost all the time on an exposed corner, especially if you're making a piece of furniture, because when you go to put finish on here, the surface tension of the liquid will hang right up to that corner, but it won't roll over. It may look like it's dripping over, but that corner never really gets finished. So you knock the iris off, and then you hit it with some sort of a burnish, which that could be more shavings, or it could be sandpaper. So like if you were to take some shavings, you just rub them on that corner, and that burnishes that down. That's better to accept finish. Plus it also feels nicer. It's just gentle on the touch. So the least amount of edge treatment is just to take that iris off. Okay? So how many passes? Well, it depends how finely you have your plane set, but that would be the least amount. Okay, so in reality, like I said, with a little light sanding or burnishing on the corners, that would be a surface suitable for a serving board, a sandwich board, a cutting board, and no sharp edges for people to get their hand caught on, or to make it. You want there's in life, you have visual, you have audible, and you have other senses. You have taste, you have smell, and you have touch. Touch in woodworking is almost more important than the visual. If a person rubs their hand on a corner and they feel the undulations from a machine tool, or a sawn edge, or even splintery edge from like when you hew something out and there's a splintery edge, that's not pleasing. But if you have some sort of eased edge, it just feels better. Now, there are some times, and I haven't personally done a lot of this, but like on hand-hewn furniture, where you're using a draw knife and a spoke shave to smooth out a leg, sometimes leaving that little faceted round as opposed to sanding it perfectly round, that light faceted round, if it's smooth and splinter free, offers tactile feel. It offers a sensation. Sometimes on the underneath of chair aprons, like this, on the underneath, if you leave some sort of smooth but unique tooling characteristic, it offers a sensation. So that would be the minimum right there. Now, the next step, if you wanted to take it further, would be to set some sort of a measurement. So let's say if we went in about 1/8 of an inch and drew a line. And you take that same 1/8 of an inch and you draw a line on this side. Are you with me? Can you see that? So you got 1/8 of an inch on each side. And then remove on a 45 degree the wood between the lines. Now you're creating a chamfer, okay? And the best way to do that is with a hand plane set on an angle. Now you can do this in a vise, okay? You can do it in a vise. You can go this way, or you can center around this way and come this way. If you lay it down, I'm going to lay it down for camera reasons. You go at an angle of about 45 degrees, and what that'll do, it will help prevent tear out on the far end. And you take your time. You can set it as thick or as thin a shaving as you want, but you check your progress, and you'll see there'll be one line you're getting a little closer to because maybe you're not exactly at 45, so you lift up a little bit. And it's not quite a 45. I see where I'm off just a little bit. See if we can't take a little bit more. That's pretty close. Okay? So that's a chamfer. Can you see that? And you can make that chamfer any size you want. You want to make it 3/16, you want to make it 1/4 inch, any size you want, you can make it. That's just a plain chamfer. So let's do another one down on this end. So I want to show you the next edge treatment. Now, another thing you can do if you know you're going to do chamfers all the way around, just before you start planing, you take a chisel, a sharp chisel, and you come in at the corner and you pare down. That's all. You just pare down and you create a chamfer on the corner. So that now you can proceed as quickly as you like to take that chamfer down. All right? You're following me here. Now if you do this and this all the way around, that'll put a chamfer on this end, and then you can do the same thing on these edges. Just to save time, what I'm going to do is we'll knock the corner off of this one. clean this one up a little bit. It was a little off at 45. And then put a little chamfer here. I'm not going to run the whole length of the board, but you put a little chamfer here and here. So what you're creating, I don't know if you can see it, but you're creating a chamfer all the way around that corner, and then you end up with a point, which you can also take your chisel and blunt that off, and then just lightly hit this with some sandpaper or some shavings. So that would be a chamfered edge, like this one. But what if you want a round edge? And you don't have molding planes or a router or anything like that? Well, then it's real simple. And I don't care what type of tool you use, if you have any block plane. So you've got your 45 going across this way. Come back to 22.5 degrees. Go forward to 22, well, you'll be going to 45, and 22.5 would be 67.5 degrees. So you're coming forward here. 45, 22.5, 67.5. So now you're starting to create what I talked about before, a faceted corner. And then it's just a matter of laying the plane down a little bit more and then lifting it while you go around. And there you go. There's a quarter round. Not perfect. You can take a little more time. And then you can do the same thing out here with either a plane, the chisels, or a file. You want to get really fancy? You want to take those corners off? Do you have one of these? A gouge? Real quick way of taking the corners off is with a gouge, and you turn the inside towards it, lining the points up on either side. Okay, and you can keep coming in until you are at the radius of the gouge. And then finish that up. See how it's a radius now? Can you see that? I don't know exactly how these cameras work, but we'll get through this. So you have a radius of the gouge, and then you have a radius here. So that would be a round over. And that's real pleasing when you go to hold it. I don't always use it because it reminds me a lot of my machine tool days. So you can use a chisel and work that corner. And there again, you have a little bit of a point there, and you just blunt that off. So, you've got a chamfer. We did just the eased edge on this side. Chamfer. Round over. If you want to get really fancy, you can also do a cove cut with a chisel. I'm not going to demonstrate it because I don't usually do it with this. I would use a molding plane, but you can do a cove cut. But any of these would be totally acceptable for these sandwich boards. So I'm going to go ahead and start out by putting a small chamfer all the way around. And then I'm going to experiment a little. I might work with this one. I mean, I could even do, like I said, a cove cut on the corner with the gouge. Either straight or tapered in some way. Okay? See, that's the neat thing about hand tools. They're very versatile. And you're not going to get much cleaner surface with any sort of, sandpaper on that cove right there. So next up, if you recall, my discussion was, what do we do? Do we just leave it a square board, or do we put some sort of grip or handhold? Here again, you could lay out using find the center here. What do we have? We have 5 and 5/8. So we're somewhere around 2 3/4. Right about there is center. So about 3 or 4 inches. 4 inches would be a nice hand grip. So you got 2 inches and you got 4 inches. And you can lay this out. And that's another topic maybe for an episode, is layout. Layout can be as difficult or as simple as you like. Advanced joinery does require advanced layout. Boy, that's profound. So now, for the grip, we can't go more than the half, maybe 2/3 the thickness of the board, maybe a little bit more, but start out light and go from there. And so the deepest section will be in here. So whatever you choose for here, keep your finger gauge. By the way, that's a tool. That's your finger gauge. I got to be careful what I say. Most people have finger gauges, but sadly some don't. But it's a whole nother story. So that could be all the layout that you need. So this goes in the vise. And here again, we need to use our special rack protection. You get a stick that's about the thickness of your wood. Let me see, what do I got here? That's a little thicker, but that'll work. And you put it in the far side of your vise. And you take a clamp and you clamp it to that, so when you loosen the vise, it doesn't fall on the floor. So, if you are limited on tools, you can create this handhold with just a chisel. And you have to follow your wood grain and just pare it away. And you work from both directions. That's one way to do it. If you want it to be scalloped and you have a carving chisel, you can also do it with the gouge. Just remember, as you go out towards the other end, it's not so bad on the end grain. It's really almost, there's no real grain to drive the tool. So we can do it that way. If you have a gouge. If you don't have a gouge, you can do it with the chisel. Now, you can start out flat side down, but eventually you're going to have to go to bevel side down because there's just no way to control it. Because the bevel is your steering mechanism. So you can just keep working that until you create a finger grip. You with me? Now, let me show you the progress so far. It's still rough, but you see how we're creating that finger grip? You can come on the table and you can stick your fingers in this little channel. But if you're lucky enough to have any form of a spoke shave. This happens to be a small one. Okay? A spoke shave is nothing but a plane. All right? Very simple plane. It's a blade that's sharp and it's got a sole. It's all it is. If you happen to have a spoke shave, now here's the thing. I think we're going to make one of these. I've got some of Ron Hawk's spoke shave blades, and I think we'll make one out of wood. They're not difficult. And everybody should have a spoke shave. And it's always fun to have tools you make. But spoke shaves come in all shapes and sizes, types of metal, and price range. I recommend your first spoke shave be a simple one like this. There's no wheelie-dealy knobs and gadgets and stuff. It's a very simple tool. And you can get old Stanley ones, record ones. Sometimes, if you're very lucky, you can get one that's a little rusty for $5 or $10 at a flea market. But if you're lucky enough to have a spoke shave, this is the tool for this job. Work from one side. Yep, that can happen. You can get vibration. And then you can also push it. And there you go. We stayed within the two layout lines. I went a little past on either end there, so if, like me, if you have a tendency to go to extremes, put your layout lines in a little further, or just plan on that. And from this point, because this is end grain, you may want to take some probably 180 sandpaper, and then 220 around, you can put it around a water bottle. And just go in here back and forth a few times and smooth that out. But there's your finger grip. And you can make that any size. Let me get this in the camera here somehow. I'm not good with this camera. There it is. There's your finger grip. Okay? So that will allow you to pick them up off the table. Now, I think on mine, what I'm going to do, and I think I'm going to lengthen one side of this, the underside. I think I'll lengthen the one side. That will give you a longer finger grip without taking away from the thickness of the wood. Or shall I say the thickness of the edge. See what I mean? It's longer this way than it is that way, so you can, yeah, that feels better. That feels a lot better. You can get in there more, and a little wider would be nice. The boards are a little bit wider, but that would be a finger grip. Now, if you were a machine shop, how you would create that would be with a jig and a template, and then a router or a shaper that has either a chamfer cutter, just a 45, or you would use a cove. But more than likely you could get away with just a chamfer. But a cove would be nice even underneath here, a rounded cove. If you wanted to add a tactile feel to that, once you shape it, here's an idea. This just came to me. Here's an idea. If you want to add a tactile feel to it, you can, see how I can position this so I can show you. You can now, not far enough over. You set up your workbench so it's comfortable. There we go. You can now take your carving chisel, and like I say, if you have just one carving chisel, you can do a lot of things with it. And you carve the underneath side and create ridges. Go all along, create ridges, and that'll give another sensation, because you'll feel those high spots and low spots. Here again, if you want to lay it out geometrically, you can. Just a quickie here, folks. A little rough. I'll show you the shadow effect. If I can get a couple different images of it. So now you've got, wow, that really feels neat. Or you can go the other way. You can create ribs this way. Or just one rib that way. The options are endless, but that's about it for this portion. When we get back together, I'm going to have my 4 boards done. And we'll talk about some other things. But I hope I brought something to you tonight, because you don't need a lot of tools to do woodworking. You don't need super high-end tools. I happen to have them because over the years I restored my old Stanleys and I used them, and then I had opportunities to buy tools, so I replaced them and I passed those other ones on. But any spoke shave will do. We've got to make a spoke shave together. Any block plane will do. You can make your own block plane real easy. Okay? We'll get into that too over time. It's a nice small project. Doesn't require a lot of material. A chisel, a plane, a saw, some wood, and some creativity, and that's really all you need to make your first project, which you can give as a gift to somebody. You can make 4 of these, and that would be a nice gift for 2 couples to sit down for sandwiches, or you can make 2 or 1 and just give it to somebody, maybe with some nice cheese or bread that you have or like or made. What we do as woodworkers, what we do, touches other people. It reaches out. I know this sounds strange, but bear with me. It reaches out beyond time and space, and it leaves a part of you with someone else. Okay? And if you wood burn or engrave your name or logo on it, they will remember this is from you. And they say a person is never forgotten if their name is spoken. So, deep thoughts. I get that way sometimes. Well, I sure hope that you found something useful and can take it to your workshop. And this is just my approach. And thank you for your time. And if you found it useful or entertaining, give it the old thumbs up. And like and share us all over the world, wherever you go. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Head out to your shop. Go make some shavings. Walter out.